新年
Members, Happy New Year.
大家事事順利，身體健康。
Wish you every success and good health and good governance in the year of the rabbit. And for this panel, I hope that we'll be able to deliver results and examine reports. We've set up a subcommittee on the promotion of national security education, and basically they've concluded their work, and on the 4th of January we also visited the National Education Support Center, and members identified certain issues and made suggestions on improvement. So I hope members would strive for more resources to be provided to the resource center through various platforms. No information paper has been issued since the last meeting. As for items for discussion at the next meeting, before I go into this item, on the evening of the 6th of January, Mr. President welcomed the 4 new members to the Council, and on this occasion I'd also like to congratulate and thank Professor William Wong for joining this panel. And the President mentioned whether this panel will organize an overseas duty visit. And then at the during the visit on the 7th, organized by the Subcommittee on National Education, some members suggested visiting Israel. So let me take this opportunity to formally put this proposal forward to members for your consideration. Participation is voluntary. No attendance will be considered, and
有一次嘅，咁咧教育事務委員會係其中一個。
The education panel is one of the panels more open to suggestions of overseas duty visits during each legislative session. And together with Mr. Tang Fei, Deputy Chair, and also Mr. Stanley Ng, Chair of the subcommittee, we discussed the idea of a duty visit, and we all agree that Israel should be one of the destinations to be considered. So at this juncture, perhaps I'll throw open the floor. Members, if you'd like to comment on it, you will have 1 minute. In fact, when we formally put forward this proposal, the Secretariat already noted it down, and this is the first meeting of the panel on education after the Lunar New Year. So I'll just formally go through this idea with you. Dr. Tikshiyun. Just now, other fellow members asked whether I should visit Israel. I believe that we should visit 2 ideal locations, Finland and Israel. And we once visited Finland before, so I think we should visit Israel, because as far as the education system is concerned, Israel is in the leading position, so is worthy of a visit. But do bear in mind the weather, it could be quite hot. Mr. Tang Fei. Yes, I agree with visiting Israel as well. And the Tel Aviv University has an enrollment scheme in Hong Kong, so it's not as remote as we think. And regarding the STEM courses in Israel, they have really good progression pathways all the way from primary to tertiary schools. And regarding cultivating a sense of national identity. Again, in Israel, they have also implemented quite a lot of measures to promote national identity. And in fact, there have been delegations comprising school principals, etc., to Israel. And again, they also highly recommend this destination. Mr. Chujiko, I agree as well. I understand that there is an enhanced knowledge course on Israel, so I think we should visit Israel together with the center. Your comments are noted. Back then, more than one member made the same suggestion, and in year 2000, things were at an early stage of development, and I organized a remote learning class using software developed in Israel. So we started really early, and we're now in 2020s, and not until now are we extensively using online learning. When we promoted bilingual legal education, we adopted the Israeli software in our online learning system. I understand that they're really advanced, and the education system also influences the Western education system because the same software is used. So this will be our final proposal. Of course, we need to join the queue. I know that other panels have suggested visiting the Greater Bay Area and it seems that our proposal will stand out among them. And Dr. Teck Chi-Yun correctly pointed out that we once visited Finland and we delivered a very good report. We considered their system from primary schools all the way to universities. So apart from the subcommittee's suggestion regarding national education, I'd say that the STEM education in Israel is also really advanced. So mull it over, and if you have further suggestions, tell me or write to the panel so that we consider what we should include in the report. We must hand in our homework, so to speak. Dr. Teck, can you indicate what slots will be available? We need to check our diaries. The Secretariat has proposed either August or September. The Council will resume in October. So usually if you have overseas duty visits, they will take place in the 2 months I mentioned. I think the Secretariat will be liaising with other panels, but my take at this moment is that August and September are the 2 months we should go for. Comments are welcome. If you have affiliated organizations, groups that can offer us suggestions, comments on where to visit, please tell us. At this stage, and it is preliminary, we believe in order to take a new perspective, we should visit Israel. So much for this item.
跟住落嚟呢，就係下次嘅討論事項。下次
Items for discussion at the next meeting. The next regular meeting will be held on the 3rd of March 2023, a Friday. The administration proposes to discuss the operation and supervision of special schools. I know that this is an issue close to the heart of members. The next item is the role and development of professional role and development of teachers. And in relation to declining student population territory-wide, we will work out a schedule with the administration. Their suggestion is to discuss this item at the regular meeting on the 31st of March. I think this is an acceptable proposal. I know members are keen to discuss the issue of declining student population and its implications on the policy issues. So the administration has proposed to discuss it at the regular meeting of the 31st of March. Deputy Chair also once urged the issue to be discussed in the March meeting. So this will be it. If there are no other suggestions, these will be the two items for discussion at the next meeting, unless we have an emergency. And then on to the agenda proper. The next item is review of sub-degree education and diploma Yijin. Let me invite the administration to come in. As far as I understand, the Secretary for Education, Dr. Choi, was originally supposed to walk us through the paper herself, but because of the Chief Executive's press conference, we have Undersecretary for Education, Mr. Jeff C. here. And members, if you want to speak, please press the request to speak button. I see that we have 10 members waiting.
I first invite Mr. Jeff C., Undersecretary for Education, to walk us through the paper. Madam Chair, members, I wish you all every success in the year of rabbit and good health. The government has been working to promote education for vocational and professional education so that they can have various pathways. In the 2022 policy address, the Chief Executive announced measures to promote vocational and professional education and integrate it with traditional education and encourage integration of traditional and professional education so that there can be more talents in Hong Kong. Sub-degree education has been playing an important role in Hong Kong's education system. Associate degree qualification and higher diploma qualifications are both at level 4 of the Hong Kong qualifications framework. However, associate degree qualification is of a more general nature and high diploma qualification is more vocationally oriented. The report from the Task Force on Promotion of Vocational and Professional Education and Training advised that there should be a differentiation between AD and HD in their positioning, and there is a need to enhance the quality of associate degree programs. Therefore, in 2020, EDB started a review and appointed HKCAAVQ, Hong Kong Council for Accreditation of Academic and Vocational Qualifications, as the consultant to review the education system. The review looks into the following key issues, including review of the differentiation between AD and HD in their positioning, and exploring potential measures to enhance the positioning of HD in the vocational and professional education training pathway. We have extensively consulted relevant stakeholders, and it shows that there is a general support for having a sharper differentiation between AD and HD. And also, there are views that there should be enhancement of AD education, and that there should be more recognition from the industry on the AD and HD degrees. Also, there should be full-time and part-time degrees for these programs to support students to choose from various pathways and also enrich Hong Kong's talent pools. Also, AD programs positioning should be enhanced to provide aspiring students with appropriate options. We accept the council comments or suggestions to enhance the design and entry requirements and engagement of industry and articulation employment pathways, and through articulation mechanism enhance the relevant programs. And also, it should be a stand-alone qualification. Also, program providers should provide a clear pathway and provide more information, and also keep track of the pathways of students. On HD programs, there should be enhanced positioning of the program so that there can be more flexibility for students to articulate to their pathways. And also, the industry should work closely with program providers so that students can acquire the required skills they need for entering into the workforce, and there should be work-based learning and project-based learning so that students can be familiarized with the real-world situations. Also, there can be more flexibility in the programs and enhance the inclusivity of entry requirements or admission criteria, and adopt the transfer credit approach. And also should serve a strengthened role in promoting the flexibility of the VPET pathways and keep track of the pathways of graduates. We plan to, in the first quarter and second quarter of this year, announce the revised common descriptors, and in 2025 make it effective. Also, the EDB will roll out the Diploma of Applied Education program to replace the Diploma EGIN to provide an alternative pathway for school leavers so that they can obtain a formal qualification for the purposes of employment and further study. The new DAE program will incorporate new elements and provide more flexibility so that it can play a more important role in VPET and enhance the interface with other professional diploma programs. There will be a brand new VPET stream, and students can, based on their interests, complete 3 courses. Students also need to complete at least 10 hours of life-wide learning activities as a graduation requirement. There are similarities between the new DAE program and Diploma EGIN. They are both at level 3 under the qualifications framework. Graduates of the new program can obtain qualification that is comparable to the attainment of level 2 standard in 5 subjects in HKDSE, and the DAE qualification is also accepted by the government as meeting the academic entry requirement of civil service posts. And students will receive government reimbursement of 30% of the tuition fees paid for each completed course. The EDB will continue to support associate degree programs and, together with the Council for Accreditation, closely monitor the implementation of these programs. To conclude, through strengthening the programs and education and completing the VPET pathways, we strive to promote the dual implementation of traditional education as well as VPET education. That's all for my briefing today. We are happy to take questions from members. We'll start with Dr. Teck Chi Yun. 11 members have pressed the button to speak. I will give 4 minutes to each. Dr. Teck Chi Yun, Dr. Chow Man Kong, Mr. Dennis Leung, Professor William Wong, Mr. Chu Kwok Keung, Mr. Rock Chen, Mr. Tang Fei, Mr. Stanley Mr. Lam Chen Singh, and myself. Dr. Teck Chi Yun, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. I give my support to the directions set out in the paper and rationalize the current education systems and programs. In the past, we've wasted a lot of resources and time of young people. A lot of students who have completed associate degree qualifications, and it doesn't really help them with their career. Some of them may have paid hundreds and thousands of tuition fees, and the courses, however, may not be very helpful for them. Now there is more room compared to the associate degree qualification, or apart from the AD programs, there are various pathways. So the government has built the linkages between the different qualifications or programs, and I appreciate that. I agree that there should be dual development between VPET education and traditional education. For some self-financing institutions, they offer some programs that require a lower cost, but for some that require higher cost or expensive equipment or facilities, does the government have any resources to allocate to these institutions so that they can offer some more meaningful VPET programs? Parents believe that it's important for children to obtain degrees. Well, after they have completed the VPET programs, there are ways for them to pursue further studies so that they can obtain higher qualifications. On Diploma of Applied Education program, can it dovetail with other diploma programs? How many students do you think, after they have graduated from the DAE program, will pursue HD qualifications or higher diploma programs? Each student has different progress. I think for those who would like to work hard or aspire to pursue further studies, there should be opportunities given to them. For self-financing education programs, is there a system for families with lower income to apply for funding so that they can complete or study in these programs? Undersecretary, Thank you, member, for the question, and thank you for giving your support to the direction set out in the paper. On the cost for developing degree programs, there is a stringent mechanism to ensure that degree program providers can develop degree programs that respond to human resource needs in the society, especially those self-accredited degree program providers. They have to meet certain criteria set out by the Council for Accreditation. And there are requirements that these degree programs have to respond to the human resource needs in Hong Kong. And also, program providers have to carry out market research in order to pass the assessment by the Council for Accreditation. So we'll not only look at the costs required to develop the programs. Instead, the programs have to meet the human resource needs of the society. On the other question about the pathways offered to students, in this review, we try to rationalize associate degree programs and high diploma programs. As mentioned, we will implement some indicators and offer more information to schools for them to formulate their programs. After students have completed the Diploma of Applied Education program, well, as you said, each student is faced with a different starting point. We'll incorporate more vocational elements into these programs. So students who have completed this program, they can more easily enter into the workforce. And similar to the previous Diploma EGIN, after students have completed the new DAE program, they will obtain a qualification that is equivalent to the attainment of level 2 of HKDSE. So students can, based on their personal interests and aspirations, make their own choices after they've completed the program. We encourage students or graduates of this program, if they are interested in pursuing further studies, even if they are interested in vocational courses, they can still choose high diploma programs instead of associate degree programs.
Finally, about subsidies, we offer financial assistance to students. That is in relation to post-secondary courses. Eligible students can apply for financial assistance. As for Diploma of Applied Learning programs, we also provide financial assistance on a reimbursement basis for full-time and part-time students, as long as they meet the attendance requirement. Mr. Kenneth Leung, I agree with what is set out in the paper. We need to clearly delineate between associate degree and high diploma qualifications. And for the young people I know, it seems that they are still quite obsessed with having a degree qualification. So if associate degree qualification should continue to serve as a standalone qualification, then in terms of career pathways, are there suitable jobs for them so that associate degree holders can be better recognized in the workplace. Another point is about the Greater Bay Area, about mutual recognition of qualifications and support for VPET students. Are there measures to help them take forward their development in the GBA cities? Under Secretary. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Leung, for the 2 questions. Through our exchange with young people, we understand their concern about bridging over from academic pursuits to joining the workforce, and specifically how they can apply what they've learned in their workplace. Now, for associate degree students, the emphasis is on generic skills. But the curriculum is designed in such a way that apart from going for a broad knowledge base, we also provide training for students to form a solid base of skills. So in the common descriptors, this will be spelled out. We also encourage institutions to provide more project-based learning, placement opportunities, so as to allow students to gain work exposure and for employers to have a better understanding of the course structure and design. As far as recognition of the qualification is concerned, from statistics, close to 90% of AD graduates have chosen to further their studies or seek employment. So this is how the recognition of the qualification is reflected. About exchange and collaboration with GBA cities, credit accumulation or mutual recognition of credits is something we will explore. At the same time, we also consider running certain courses in parallel in 2 places so as to foster collaboration between institutions in the 2 cities. I understand that some institutions have started this kind of discussion with their counterparts. Be it recognition of the qualifications themselves or course credits, we do encourage more institutions to foster to have collaboration with counterparts. Dr. Chow Man Kwong, I think sub-degree education is important because it drives economic growth as well as foster the development of youth. Sub-degree education has helped a lot of young people. From what I've seen, many young people might not have excelled academically, but after taking up a sub-degree education, many of them finally obtained qualifications and excelled in the workplaces, and one of them even obtained a reward in the construction industry. And we also have a number of population or demographic issues, mismatch in the workplace, and we also have a brain drain issue. The student population dropped from 71,000 to 43,000. So as far as student enrollment is concerned, institutions, universities are enrolling fewer students as a result, and these operators are affected. We need to, therefore, trawl for talents, and we need to start with sub-degree education, ADHD alike. We have students in the mainland, in Taiwan, in Macau. At the moment, we're not enrolling enough of them. A few days ago, the Education Bureau announced that the admission criteria for 3 of the post-secondary self-financing institutions will be relaxed. Some institutions welcomed this relaxation measure, but it also sparks controversy. Say, after relaxation, some institutions may take in 1,100 instead of 1,000 students. So it's far from enough. And there is also a question on what is defined as a good operator or good service provider. And for young people taking sub-degree courses, they may need to pay loans and grants for up to $100,000. How are they going to repay it in the future? Is it possible for students to be given certain exemptions in the grant and loan repayment? Say if you get second upper honor, if you have better academic results, you can get certain waiver to facilitate the upward mobility of young people. Finally, we have different institutions. Ivy is one of the institutions under the Education Bureau. So it's easy for Ivy, but for other institutions, they may need to send the cost structure to the HKCAAV for accreditation. And in other words, approval will have to be given by the HKCAAVQ first. And this will mean 2 or 3 years. And you won't produce a cohort of graduates until 4 or 5 years later. And only when you have proof you have a track record can you apply for a degree course to be operated. In other words, it takes 7 to 8 years before you have a cohort of degree, a graduate of degree courses. This is a big issue. Well, I've covered a lot of ground. I don't think you'll be able to answer all my questions today. But these are issues that affect manpower development in Hong Kong in the future and also the impetus for growth. Undersecretary, Mrs. Yi. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Dr. Chow, for your views. Indeed, and as far as the education system is concerned, including the post-secondary sector, all policies are intertwined. And the member mentioned the problem of having few student or decline in the student population, and the issue of operating new programs. We encourage programs tailored to meet the manpower needs of certain industries. As mentioned in the policy address, the subsidy program for designated sectors will be extended, and this will mean a less financial burden on students because of the expansion of the student subsidy scheme for designated professions or sectors. The other point we need to consider is the overall development. Whether the measures will lead to more difficulties in terms of the operation of some institutions, and that's about accreditation of programs. And I note members' concern about the lengthy process needed, and we're aware of the problem. In the past decade or so, some institutions try to operate a pre-primary education program, starting with a high diploma program all the way to a degree program. And it's a lengthy process indeed, because after operating the course for 1 year, we will assess the outcome before considering whether further courses should be allowed. Sorry, I have to stop you here. Dr. Chow Meng Kwong asked why only 3 institutions have met the relaxation requirement. But in the interest of time, may I remind members that I need to uphold the speaking time limit rule more stringently. You'll be given 4 minutes, questions and answers included. Now, I let the Undersecretary explain the relevant policies in a more detailed manner so that members can follow up on the matters with specific questions. And anyway, if the Undersecretary hasn't answered a member's question, perhaps the subsequent members can follow up on the same point. Mr. Dennis Leung. I welcome the review of sub-degree education and the Diploma Yi Jin, but I think the big question is whether we should continue to have associate degree qualification. And for Diploma Yi Jin program, it will be replaced by Diploma of Applied Education program, and I fully agree. Whereas for the associate degree qualification, I think that a review should be conducted because I think the positioning between AD and HD higher diploma are mostly the same, and yet for associate degree students, they pay hefty school fees comparable to university school fees, but then they don't have as well a career pathway as uni students. There are some I understand that some students are of high caliber. They're able to be articulated to high-level education degree courses, whereas for some other students, since manpower resources are very crucial and that the committee plays an important role, they should consider the manpower needs of Hong Kong in the future and the programs to be operated, and they should also let students know their career pathways in the future. So when some students can be articulated to higher level education to take up research programs, some other students should be encouraged to take the Diploma of Applied Education program to relieve the manpower shortage in Hong Kong. The problem facing us now is that the prospect of an AD graduate is not guaranteed. They've taken out loans in order to study the program. So there should be clear pathways between a degree course and diploma course. Now, if you can't get into university, you should either retake the DSE for enrollment into university or otherwise, so that we focus the resources and provide clear pathways for students. If we're able to do that, I believe we'll be able to relieve the labor shortage.
Undersecretary, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Leung, for the suggestions. When we conducted the review, we heard various views on associate degree programs. We see that there is a demand for students who've graduated from secondary schools. They see this as a second chance. As you know, for those who are not able to meet the 3322 requirements in the HKDSE, some of them would like to study in the associate degree programs. So we have no plans to abolish the associate degree programs. Our goal is to enhance the values of AD qualifications. And provide better pathways for students who would like to further their studies. As discussed, students have completed the associate degree programs or bachelor degree programs, they are still able to become professionals in the society. Professor William Wong for a student who chooses to study high diploma programs, they may have similar pathways. Well, 30 to 40 years ago, the pathways for us were very clear. Now looking at the associate degree programs, when we discussed with parents and students, they see that these pathways provided by AD programs unclear. Would you consider stop rendering support to AD programs? In general, we support the results or outcomes of the review though. On higher diploma qualification, I think it's going to be helpful to the INT development in Hong Kong. I understand that in mid-2023, the government will implement a human resources study or projection. Would you carry out studies on the high diploma qualification or programs in this projection? For some of the graduates who have completed HD programs, I understand that they would like to further their studies in universities. For example, the I or universities of applied subjects. Do we have applied sciences programs or courses that can receive students or admit students with high diploma qualifications? Some parents think that technician is a low-level job. I think there should be better life planning education or life planning for parents and students so that they understand that INT will offer good career prospects. Undersecretary, on human resources projection, I understand that the Labor and Welfare Bureau is working on it. We understand that they will carry out a detailed projection. If the EDB can offer any help in their work in carrying out the projection, we'll definitely offer our assistance. On previous human resources planning, we learned that there is a shortage of talents in specific sectors or industries. So on associate degree programs and also the new Diploma of Applied Education programs, we wish to incorporate more vocational elements into the courses so that industries or sectors who is facing a manpower shortage may get talents in the future. There's a pilot schemes and also including the I, which have institutions participating in the schemes. we are reviewing the implementation of these schemes and will roll out technology-related courses to help aspiring students to develop the profession. We will continue with the publicity work in professional and vocational education and training. We have a dedicated working group to do that, and we will continue to strengthen our promotion of this type of education. We're also working to enhance the image or public's perception of vocational and professional education. Each member will have 4 minutes. I'm unwilling to stop you, but I have to be strict with the time. Next, Mr. Chu Kwok-keung. Thank you, Madam Chair. There has been an unclear delineation between associate degree and high diploma programs. Well, the review this time is helping to set a clearer delineation between the two. Some see that associate degree qualification as an intermediate exit qualification, but this is not included in the common descriptors. Students, teachers, and the general public who refer to this common descriptors may still be unclear about the positioning of associate degree qualification. Would you consider incorporating the part about intermediate exit qualification into the common descriptors? In the past, some institutions tend to develop a certain type of programs, and there has been a proliferation of this type of programs. Now the EDB is requiring relevant institutions to keep track of these programs, and if there is a gap between the outcomes and expectations, they need to offer an explanation. I think it's not very meaningful for you to ask them to evaluate the gap. If institutions are not getting enough students, obviously they will change their courses. Will the EDB learn about what kind of programs are offered by institutions beforehand instead of asking them to conduct an evaluation? We've been talking about competing for talents or attracting talents. Will the administration offer more incentives to institutions so that they can develop courses that will help nurture talents in Hong Kong? Undersecretary, we have drawn references of overseas experiences, and we learned that there are differences between the positioning of associate degree programs in different jurisdictions depending on the economic structure of various countries. We take into consideration the actual situation in Hong Kong. In our review, we suggest that associate degree qualification should be a standalone qualification. There are still a number of students who would like to further their studies. As mentioned, how institutions offer courses that dovetail with programs that help students who would like to further their studies. And they have to do that from the design perspective. That's why we've set KPIs for institutions so that they can take into consideration the employment rate and articulation rate when they design their courses. so that the courses can meet the needs of the society. Of course, institutions can choose to stop their courses, but ultimately they should consider whether they are beneficial to students. The last member who pressed the button is Reverend Peter Kuhn. Next, Mr. Rock Chen. I first declare that I'm a member of the HKCAVQ. There are concerns about the positioning of AD and HD programs and also the recognition of these programs. Therefore, I suggest that in the revised common descriptors, there should be clear articulation pathways proposed and a clear differentiation in the positioning of AD and HD. HD plays an important role in vocational and professional education. On common descriptors, I would like to know on minimum entry requirements for these programs. How do we come up with an effective mechanism to ensure that there is a level of flexibility in students' admission in these programs? We've talked about associate degree programs and how helpful they are to help students find jobs. How do we ensure that the programs offered can keep abreast of the actual needs in the industries and trades? And can these programs offer placement opportunities and also different types of training to enrich students' learning?
Undersecretary, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Chan, for his questions on the revised common descriptors. On credit accumulation and transfer, we have a set of guidelines on credit accumulation and transfer arrangements, or CAT, under the Hong Kong qualifications framework for the institution's reference. We welcome the arrangements of credit accumulation and transfer to avoid repeated learning, so that students' learning time will not be wasted, and this will better consolidate resources. At the time of admission, institutions can duly consider the past learning experience and the courses taken by students before, and once admitted, credits obtained by students in previous courses can be recognized to avoid repeated learning. And for higher diploma programs, we encourage the adoption of a specification of competency standards and vocational qualification pathways as the basis of design of HD programs, so that the HD program so designed can be more relevant to the qualifications register and the specification of competency standards. On enhancing applied elements in the program, such as fostering industrial institution collaboration and placement opportunities, as we talk to the institutions, we understand that some of them require extra resources, and we hope that this will serve as an extra incentive. Well, Mr. Rock Chan, I'm sure will welcome members' comments on the review. Mr. Tang Fei. Thank you, Chair. According to the administration's paper, Diploma Yijin will be replaced by the Diploma of Applied Education Programs in 2023-24 academic year. And in the course of reviewing sub-degree education, AD and HD qualifications are reviewed, and that there will be clear differentiation between AD and HD. Still, I think that the logic is flawed. For Diploma Yijin, it's not vocational oriented. Basically, after obtaining this qualification, you get a 5-subject pass in the DSE exam. Now, you are going to enhance vocational elements. So you're gradually replacing the academic elements with vocational elements. That's for Yijin. And then at the post-secondary level, you're going to maintain the 2 different pathways, HD and AD. AD is more focused on generic skills, and HD is focused on vocational and career training. So I find this peculiar. Why is it that for Diploma Yijin, instead of focusing on general education, the focus will be shifted to vocational education, whereas for AD and HD, there will still be a clear delineation between generic skills and vocational skills. Now, I agree with the other members' suggestion. Why don't we just scrap it all together and just go for high diploma only? Be it AD or HD, students of these programs have equal articulation opportunities to high-level education. Why the need to have a non-vocational pathway and a vocational pathway? Why don't we combine the 2? Under Secretary, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Tang, for the questions. Now, the logic is sound. The new program called the Diploma of Applied Education Program contains the word applied in its title. It just reflects that we place more emphasis on VPET education. However, we also keep the general or academic pathways for students of the program, like the previous diploma program. In other words, students will be required to take core subjects, Chinese, English, mathematics, together with supplementary subjects, so as to help students prepare for further studies. Now, under the new DAE program, we provide a vocational pathway because we want to provide diversified pathways so that both academic and vocation pathways can go in parallel. In senior secondary, we've already introduced applied learning subjects with the same objective. In other words, students aspired to take vocational, the vocational pathway can do so. For the secondary 6 school leavers, if they fail to attain 5 level 2 results in the DSE exam, they can then opt for the DAE pathway. Mr. Stanley Ng. Under Secretary, I have a question on associate degree. I want the government to explain its policy. As the matter stands, there is a perception that associate degree graduates are getting neither here nor there. Although you have the common descriptors, they are not hard indicators. We're unable to gauge the effectiveness as a result. In order to address the prevailing perception of AD graduates getting neither here nor there, we need to consider the following. Either we increase the number of places, we have more university places. In other words, say if candidates fail to attain the qualifications needed, more time should be given for them to do so. Otherwise, according to the common descriptors, if they're unable to achieve what you set out to do, for example, is it a prerequisite for a candidate to take an AD program first? Do you have statistics, for example, to explain to us whether there are articulation pathways for, say, mainland or overseas students? As for the Diploma of Applied Education, I agree that we should enhance the vocational elements. What about in the DSE curriculum? We also include similar vocational elements so that students can have early exposure to vocational setting and better prepare themselves at an early stage. Under Secretary, I think we now have a clear positioning of an AD qualification. As far as we understand, the majority of AD graduates have moved on to higher level education, be it UGC-funded institutions or self-financing institutions. We have accumulated a lot of experience over many years, and there is now a clearer pathway for these students. For senior secondary students, the question on incorporating more vocational elements in the new senior secondary academic structure, we do have applied learning subjects. We have the industry institutional collaboration scheme 2.0. We also have more support for students in taking applied courses. These are measures we'll continue to pursue. Next, Mr. Lam Chen Sing. I understand there is a minimum entrance requirement for AD and HD common descriptors. I think that you need to have a better distinction between the two. Say for AD, you need the level 2 in 5 Hong Kong DSE subjects, and earlier my association talked to Mr. Kun Wai Yim, the principal of the school, and that's about an electrician course. If a student fails to attain the relevant qualification of Hong Kong DSE, then as long as they've completed this course, electrician course run by them, then they can still be eligible for higher education. And the other point is about special admission quota, and that for applicants not meeting the minimum entrance requirement, not more than 5% of total intake of such students should be allowed. And why don't you provide more vocational places in this regard? And apart from Chinese, English, mathematics, these are core subjects for the AE program. I understand there are also 3 elective modules to be developed by individual provider institutions of an applied nature. Can you tell me more details about the industries involved? Are there internship opportunities for students? Will you introduce a measure to enhance the recognition of the program among employers? Third question, you should improve the VPET progression pathway. Say, can those under the apprenticeship program apply for the DAE program? For the Springboard program, students, they can apply for the courses. Now, after completing the DAE program, can they then apply for, say, ADHD and then for the and then apply for an applied degree program? Under the pilot project, on applied degree programs, you only have 4 eligible programs. You should expand it in scope, and you should improve the articulation. Under Secretary. In terms of the VPET progression pathways, of course, we should continue to improve it. About minimum entrance requirement, in the common descriptors, we spell it out. First, a candidate can provide relevant work experience and prior qualification. So apart from the result of applied learning subjects in category A, you can also consider other qualifications such as the CLP Academy example that the Honorable Member just went through with us. And relevant and substantial work experience and prior qualifications can also be considered by the institutions concerned. About the special admission quota, we'll go back and consider members' suggestion. For articulation pathways for VPET students, we mentioned the pilot project on the development of applied degree programs. We will assess the admission situation and the operation and consider members' comments. And Chair, if I may, Mr. Lam just asked a question. Perhaps I will invite Mr. Mok to briefly go through this point.
Simple response, please. Please speak to the mic. For the DAE program, please speak to the mic, Mr. Mok. Thank you, Madam Chair. On the DAE program, we have the participation from members of the industries to help develop modules of the program. And the courses can help students dovetail with the higher diploma programs. And we get the sharing by members of the industry in their experiences to help students develop their career in the future. My turn now. I give my support to the report on the review of AD and HD programs. We've been facing different issues with AD and HD programs for about a decade. Members mentioned that associate degree qualifications give students the expectation that they'll be able to continue their further studies in the future. But it does not actually guarantee students that. Students have different expectations on associate degree qualifications. Students who are not clear about their future planning, they tend to complete the associate degree programs first. When these students graduate from the program, they are unable to get high-level jobs and they're unwilling to take low-level jobs either. I think they should adopt a more pragmatic approach. A number of my colleagues, including my assistants, they completed associate degree programs, and after that they completed or obtained a bachelor degree qualification. But most of the students who've completed the AD programs, they're unable to get high-level jobs. You have to talk to the institutions to see if they are going to transform the AD programs into higher diploma programs. They are the major stakeholders, and you have to talk to them. Say if the associate degree programs are not very popular in the future, and you may want to cut all these programs and combine AD and HD programs. Some associate degree graduates told me that if you cancel all AD programs, they'll be worried. As far as I understand, police officers who've obtained associate degree qualifications, they can be promoted to one rank higher. So you have to decide whether you are going to transform AD programs into HD programs and at the same time ensure that there won't be a reduction in the number of institutions that provide these programs. In the past, even for legal degrees, there are higher diploma programs. Physiotherapy courses as well. How are you going to ensure that graduates of these programs can continue to obtain higher degree qualifications? Please do not only talk to stakeholders in the education sector, you have to talk to employers as well. Undersecretary, please. Thank you, Madam Chair, for your support to the report. I agree that the education quality is important too. Over the past decade, associate degree programs from 2013 to 2014, there were 1,300 places, and the number dropped to 9,300 in 2022 to 23. So institutions have been making adjustments to the provision of places and courses as they attach importance to the education quality as well. For pre-primary education, we see quality courses as well. For those who graduated from high diploma programs, they are able to become kindergarten teachers. Well, the question is, if you want to transition from associate degree programs to high diploma programs, or if you decide to significantly reduce the number of AD programs, how do you ensure that there is a mechanism that recognizes AD qualification, and how do you ensure a smooth transition and transformation? This is what you need to think about. I think you can tell from the market response how popular high diploma programs are. That's why members raised all the views we've heard. I think there is still an unclear positioning of associate degree qualification. You have to make sure when students enroll in associate degree programs, they are clear about the possible pathways in front of them. Next, Reverend Peter Kuhn. Madam Chair, be it associate degree or high diploma qualification, I think what is more important is that there is a clear direction for students how they can proceed with their development after completing these programs. For common descriptors, that is the proposed amendments to it. I think the question is for associate degree programs, I think they should not give false hopes to parents or students that they are guaranteed a successful pathway after completing the programs. We do see a lot of unsuccessful examples among students who've completed AD programs. If you relax the entry requirements, it may not be helpful for students who've completed the programs. For those who did not achieve good results in HKDSE and who opt for associate degree programs, we need to think about whether they can have a good pathway in the future. We also need to think about the recognition of these programs in the industry or how employers regard these qualifications. I'm not saying that we should scrap associate degree programs completely, but I do think that there should be a clear delineation between associate degree and high diploma qualifications. We should not give false hope to students that it is easy for them to enroll into the programs, but not have a clear future after completing the programs. I think we should ensure that students who've completed associate degree programs can continue with university studies afterwards. Under Secretary, in our review, we've clearly stated the differentiation and the positioning of associate degree and higher diploma programs. We ask institutions that provide these degree programs that they should let us know the percentage of students accepted or admitted to these programs, and these statistics would be helpful to students when they consider their future pathways. On entry requirements, (3322) is the minimum requirement in HKDSE for students who would like to continue with bachelor degree programs.
2個要求會低。
For those who would like to continue with associate degree programs, they need to obtain level 2 in 5 subjects in the HKDSE. For those who are not able to meet the requirements, as mentioned in the paper, they can first complete the Diploma of Applied Education program first before they continue with further studies. I think students need to set their goals based on their personal interests. For those who are less interested in pursuing further studies and opt for finding a job first, I think they also have very good pathway or options, and this is what we're going to tell the students when we promote life planning education. I think the administration need to be more determined or have a clearer direction when deciding whether to transform associate degree programs to higher diploma programs. Reverend Peter Kuhn mentioned that we should not waste students' time. Well, more importantly, we should not increase students' grievances as they plan for their future. I think it's hard for you to find any universities to guarantee an rate or percentage of admission. So you have to talk to them about that. Are we producing too many students studying arts? For those industries that are seeing a manpower shortage, how do we address the issue through the education system? We do not want unclear responses from the administration. You have to tell parents and students clearly what kind of talents we need in the society. There are lots of employers from different industries who have been finding it difficult to recruit people. Well, we've talked about the report on the review of sub-degree education, and we also talked about the new DAE programs. We do not have enough time, but we will let the administration continue with their work in the meantime. Next agenda item, promotion of STEAM education in primary and secondary schools. Members who would like to speak, please press the button, and I now invite Mr. Jeff C., Undersecretary, to walk us through the paper.
To support the development of Hong Kong as an international I&T hub so as to dovetail with the National 14th Five-Year Plan, implement national strategy of invigorating the country through science and education and foster new growth drivers and new strengths, the Chief Executive has announced in the 2022 policy address to step up the promotion of STEAM education to better equip students with the 21st century competencies, nurture their creativity and innovation spirit, and to cultivate talents to support the country's development. STEAM education will be further promoted, adopting the spirit of STEAM education for all for fun, and we are going to enhance the modules on coding for secondary, upper primary level and junior secondary level, and by doing so, we seek to cultivate students' interest and capability of I&T, and for those more capable students, they can then promote to take STEAM-related elective subjects. Such as Module 1 and 2 of the extended part of senior secondary mathematics, so as to foster and enhance their foundation in mathematics, science, and technology for articulating into advanced STEAM learning at the tertiary level in the future. We also place emphasis on collaborating with the Hong Kong AGE, Hong Kong Academy of Gifted Education, and the Academy provides about 8,000 places, and we also have a funding support to train students on big data and quantum computation. And since 2019, we have organized 21 STEAM-related courses for students with high potential to excel. In order to identify more students with high potential, we propose to inject $500 million to the Quality Education Fund to support the Hong Kong AGE so as to enhance outside school services or off-school advanced learning programs, so that students with exceptional potential can be provided with high quality and challenging learning experience, and that they can take part in international competitions. Training will be organized for teachers for them to tap the pulse of the latest development. For example, in the first quarter of this year, we collaborated with a cyberport in organizing the new professional development program on innovation technology for STEAM coordinators for schools, covering a variety of topics such as AI, robotics, green technology, sharing technology, financial technology, and AR, VR. Over 300 teachers have participated in the program. In order to dovetail with the country's development, the Education Bureau continues to work with different institutions so that we organize exchanges with the top-notch scientists of our country, such as the Tiangong program. And we also have the INT Expo for students to learn more about the country's development. We have thematic talk on aerospace science by distinguished mainland aerospace scientists. We also have other we'll also resume mainland exchange tours to let students have exchanges with science researchers to enhance their understanding of the country's INT achievement. And we also allocate $900 million to the Life-Wide Learning Grant to support schools to organize more STEAM-related activities. Schools can also apply for subsidies to promote school-based STEAM education. If need be, school-based support service can also be provided to schools to support STEAM development. In the Chief Executive's policy address, there are key performance indicators relating to STEAM education, such as enhancing the coordination and planning for STEAM education, and also strengthening leadership coordination, enhancing professional training of teachers, creating an ambience, the suitable learning environment in schools. Cross-discipline activities should also be organized. The Education Bureau will review the arrangements at suitable junctures to make improvements with the country's development. We must continue to expand our talent pool. STEAM education in primary and secondary schools therefore play a very crucial role. It helps form a solid basis for students' learning. In the long run, we'll continue to collaborate with the industries so that taking a diversified approach, we can continue to introduce STEAM elements and build a professional STEAM teaching team, enhance students' learning experience, and also cultivate the younger generation into the INT professional for the next generation. In relation to the injection of funds into the Quality Education Fund, we welcome suggestions from members. Mr. Dennis Leung, Professor William Wong, Mr. Lillian Kwok, Dr. Chairman Kwong, Mr. Monique Chan, Mr. Tang Fei, Mr. Stanley Ng, and then myself and Mr. Chu Kwok Kwong. These are the 9 members waiting to speak. First round, 3 minutes. Mr. Dennis Leung. Thank you, Chair. Be it STEM or SEAM, as the Chief Executive puts it, what is important is what the curricula contain. For primary schools, the development is far behind the global development trend, mostly because there is no science subject in primary schools. It's not a standalone subject, and we often ask the Education Bureau whether it is possible to set aside science as a standalone subject instead of an element in general education, so that science and tech teachers can be engaged to take forward STEM education in primary schools. In a recent Education Expo, I understand there are new devices and toys to help pre-primary and primary students by cultivating interest in science. For example, a magnet is attached to a 5 times 10 times magnifying glass for students to actually see how bacteria are like, instead of using microscope at the higher level. So that's about using as simple as a magnifying glass for primary students to cultivate their interest. More resources should be provided to kindergartens and primary schools for them to buy gadgets and equipment to help students. But most importantly, science should be made a standalone subject in primary schools. Also for senior secondary students, despite all the talk by the Education Bureau, I question students' participation in STEAM activities. It seems that everything is related to STEAM. But the question is, less than 1% of students take pure science subjects, that is physics, chemistry, biology. So with this very small pool of available candidates, how many students will take science subjects when they reach university? Like Mr. Duncan Chiu said, if we do not improve the groundwork, it is impossible to have more students taking part in innovation and technology in the future. I don't think the Education Bureau is being precise enough. You should act with precision and provide statistics and data that are really related to STEAM or innovation technology. Undersecretary, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Leung, for the questions about promoting the learning of science and technology in primary schools. We have a pilot scheme. The pilot scheme on enhancing science and technology learning at upper primary level, and that relates to enriching the science and technology elements at the upper primary level. The Education Bureau provides holistic support on teaching and learning with a view to enhancing primary students' learning of science and technology. Regard will have to be given to teachers' qualifications, for example, and we do consult the teaching profession. In the long run, we'll explore the feasibility of setting aside science as a standalone subject at primary level. As for senior secondary level, after we completed the curriculum review, we already released space. For example, implementation of the new subject, citizenship and social development subject. This allows students to have more time to take another subject, and as far as the data shows, more students have taken elective subjects related to science and INT. Next point about making use of toys or teaching aids to make the subject more interesting is about cultivating the interest in STEAM among younger students. We need to stimulate them and make it fun. And that means teaching aids, toys, board games. These can help younger students find interest in STEM. Next, Professor William Wong. Paragraph 24 of the paper relates to some collaboration between STEAM and national education. These are individual learning activities. We all acknowledge our country's achievements in the development of science and innovation. So this should be combined with national education. Next, in this paper, you mentioned in 2017 you set up the STEM Education Center in Lok Fu. May I know the center's achievement? Is it effective? In other districts, have you considered setting up similar STEM education centers if the center is effective? Third point, about teachers' qualification. I've been talking to a lot of I&T teachers, and there is a brain drain going on, so perhaps you should work on that as well. Another question about primary schools. In paragraph 11, I understand that a pilot scheme will be introduced to see if science should be set aside as a standalone subject. I think that there is a consensus that it should be an independent subject. Why must we wait for 2 years for the pilot scheme to finish? In paragraph 9, flexibility will be provided for schools to hire STEAM teachers. Have you considered expanding the mechanism to allow more STEAM teachers to be flexibly employed? Under Secretary, I thank Professor Wong for the 5 questions. Mr. Lin will take your question on the STEM Education Center in Lok Fu. About combining STEAM with national education, I've covered that briefly in my opening remarks. Would like to allow students to gain general knowledge about the country's achievements in aerospace, science, etc., and thereby inspiring them, and that includes Tiangong class, and we also actively take part in mainland exchange tours and the Science Innovation Forum. Through various mainland exchange tours, we have different themes adopted, and STEAM is one of the major topics. So students on these tours will be taken to visit different STEAM facilities and enterprises to enhance their knowledge. And in the citizenship and social development subject for senior secondary students, there is a requirement for students to be interns, and again, it is related to STEAM. You mentioned 2 points about teachers, teacher training, as well as the establishment. In fact, starting last year, since it is related to enhancing STEAM education in primary schools, we understand that the science elements are included in general studies in primary schools at the moment, but general studies are usually taught by arts teacher. So this is something we'll consider in terms of enhancing training for teachers. For those aspiring to become primary school teachers and STEM university graduates wishing to join the profession, we consider how incentives can be provided. The existing measure is that we allow the eligible the right candidates to join the profession first before taking on-the-job training to obtain the teaching certificates. And this helps promote STEAM or STEM education in primary school? I'll defer to my colleague to take the question on the Lok-Fu Centre.
提問。
Thank you, member, for the question. Since its operation in 2017, the STEM Education Center in Lok-Fu has been organizing different training programs and has introduced various advanced equipment and devices, including 3D printing devices, drone technology devices, etc. It is a pioneer location for us to conduct trials there. A lot of teachers in Hong Kong paid visits to the center to learn about how to incorporate these advanced technology in learning and teaching. Since 2017, we have organized various trainings for teachers, and we also organized large-scale competitions, for example, model and also flying competitions. And we also organized a robotic football competition. And we have made adjustments to the nature of the center and will do more online learning and teaching in the center. Next, Ms. Lillian Kwok. We've been talking about how to nurture talents, and I think foundational education is important. Some members mentioned whether science can be a standalone subject in primary school. I understand that in various districts, they extract 1 or 2 modules from general studies subject in primary schools and make it a science subject. I think you have to review the current situation. Not all the schools have to make science a standalone subject. Next, I want to talk about training for teachers. You've been talking about how to nurture dedicated teachers for STEM or STEAM education. But more importantly, how do we make teachers understand that STEM or STEAM education, that is the purpose of the STEAM education? It aims at nurturing students' ability on problem solving, etc. In order to achieve this, all teachers need to receive basic trainings so that they can support STEAM education in schools. I studied arts when I was a student. Since 2010, I've been promoting STEAM education or STEM education at schools. In 2015 and 2016, I started coding education at schools. I think it's important that students have the commitment to do this. And you have to let teachers know about the basic concept of STEAM education so that they can reflect it in their teaching. Also, how do you make STEAM education dovetail with our INT development? In 2012, Estonia promoted coding education, and in the UK, they also incorporated coding education in their STEAM education in 2014. You need an established curriculum or framework for teachers to follow in their teaching. You mentioned that it is important to nurture students' creativity before they are 9 years old. On nurturing arts of students, we need teachers with such expertise. Arts is not the most important subject at schools. If that's the case, how are we going to nurture students in this regard successfully or effectively? Under Secretary. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Kwok, for the question. On implementing STEAM education, we carry out questionnaire surveys regularly. In the latest round of survey, we learned that most of the primary schools, over 98% of them, have incorporated coding education in their curriculum. on AI and relevant INT learning elements. About 80% of the schools are incorporating these into their curriculum. We understand and we agree that training for teachers is important. That's why I mentioned about the collaboration with Cyberport on training programs. Over 300 schools sent coordinators to participate in these programs. We offer enough places to all STEAM coordinators who are interested in taking part in the programs. We also offer in-service teachers with a 5-week training programs. Those related to STEAM education include primary school curriculum design, sports, teaching and learning, etc. And the goal is to help teachers enhance their knowledge and skills in teaching STEAM-related subjects. All teachers, no matter what subjects they teach, as long as they're interested, they can participate in this kind of training programs. And we will continue to support schools to promote STEAM education through various means. First, I have to extend the meeting by 15 minutes. We have 6 more members left during the first round, and there is 1 member who pressed the button to speak for the second round. Next, we have Dr. Chow Meng Kong. I would like to declare that I'm a UGC institution director, and I'm also a director of a center in Lingnan University. We have this research center since 2017, and we have this STEM Alliance since 2018. A lot of us have been working hard to promote STEAM education, and some were even promoted to 2 ranks higher. So we see that STEAM education can actually guarantee a very good prospect. STEAM education is a goal supported by the central government, and we've been talking about how we can promote the northern metropolis development through INT talents. Some members talked about how we can make science a standalone subject. We have 3 curriculum development officers present in the meeting today. Can STEAM be a standalone subject? We're not just talking about STEAM-related activities. We should promote it as an independent subject. Are we able to do that? Also, should we implement training programs in institutions? Are there teachers who studied STEAM education in their degree programs? Should we grant paid leave to teachers so that they can receive relevant training, or even offer scholarship to teachers who receive training? I've been studying your reports, and I think there are some recommendations that we should take forward, because this can really have an influence on our education system. I have one criticism. We are only talking about primary and secondary schools today. You did not incorporate the situation of kindergarten in your paper. I've talked to someone in the education sector earlier, and they think that kindergarten should see STEAM education promotion as well. I think you should really keep abreast of the development of the society. If you look at Finland or other northern countries in Europe, STEAM education was promoted among children aged 3 to 6. It's not scientific if you stick to this current direction. First, the EDB has to take a scientific approach and ask QEF's Secretariat to incorporate kindergarten in your work to promote STEAM education in schools. Well, not a lot of time is left. Undersecretary, please give us a brief response. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Dr. Chow. Our consideration in incorporating STEAM education in kindergarten is that these children are too young. For computation thinking, there are such elements in kindergarten. Some young children, we ask them to acquire basic knowledge in mathematics, science, and technology, and through observing phenomenon of the nature, we want them to acquire these skills and knowledge, and this is reflected in our latest or updated curriculum for kindergartens. We hope that the learning experience in kindergarten can help them or prepare them for primary education. Next, Mr. Ronick Chen. I'm not an expertise in education, but I would like to talk about the administration or administrative part. The paper mentioned that starting from 2022 to 23 school year, each school has to appoint a coordinator who will be responsible for STEAM education. Currently, a lot of schools are outsourcing this to other contractors. Are you going to ensure that the coordinator have relevant background or knowledge before they're appointed as a coordinator? Otherwise, it may have an impact on STEAM education of the schools.
Paragraph 38. In 2023-24, an additional injection of $600 million will be injected into the Gifted Education Fund, which will generate an investment return of $28 million. The balance of the Gifted Education Fund was about $1.68 billion with $61 million investment income. So the annual expenditure was about $44 million. Clearly, there is a surplus. Why do we need an additional injection? Is it that you envisage a twofold increase in the annual expenditure? And how do you come by the figure $600 million additional injection? Because the investment return annualized is 4.6% if you get $28 million per annum. For the exchange fund last year, it incurred a loss of 4.4%. Why are you so confident that you'll be able to get an investment return of 4.6%? Undersecretary. Now, on the question of STEAM coordinator, this role is not one for administrative work only, and we definitely don't encourage schools to outsource STEAM education to some third-party providers to provide STEAM activities. There should be STEAM education both inside and outside classrooms. And for STEAM education happening in classrooms, definitely it cannot be outsourced. And we also have certain requirements on STEAM coordinators. In terms of school curriculum, And we also provide an advanced learning course on STEAM with a view to enhancing the professional capacity of teachers and familiarizing them with the latest STEAM developments. These are training activities that STEAM coordinators can take part in. About the Gifted Education Fund, indeed there is a surplus, but the surplus won't be able to cover what we want to do next. Our goal is to expand the service scope of the Gifted Education Fund in the future. And in order to meet this goal, we need to provide additional funding. And a member put it rightly that we prepared estimates on annual investment return, for example, but there are unforeseen circumstances, just as the exchange fund also went through ups and downs in the 5-year cycle. As we want to ensure that teaching and learning will not be affected by investment performance of the Gifted Education Fund, we need to prepare this estimate, and there are also expenses involving overseas trainings and competitions for students, covering board and accommodation and other training programs. Students need to be trained for some time before they can take part in international games and competitions. Hence the additional injection with a view to nurture a new generation of talents. Mr. Tang Fei. The paper talks about the objectives and the strategies. So the structure is clearly laid out, but we need to face the fact. The fact is, young people in Hong Kong, along with their parents, all aspired to get a place in the School of Medicine, to become doctors. Even for traditional STEM disciplines such as engineering, it seems that nowadays such disciplines are not very popular among young people. So to dovetail with the National 14th Five-Year Plan and groom I&T talents, we need to first of all assist UGC universities to start, and the secondary schools to start revamping life planning activities. We need to have a shift in people's mindset. I'm not saying that traditional subjects are not good, but we need a change in our culture and mindset. And about secondary and primary schools, as mentioned by other members just now, even if you don't set aside STEAM as an independent or standalone subject, and I don't think this is necessary, you need to clearly define the common literacies. Say data science, there are different learning stages, and students should be able to grasp certain knowledge about data science, because once you are equipped with that knowledge, you will be able to sail through. In the UK, there are 4 different learning stages similar to Hong Kong, and there are different objectives and learning stages at the primary, junior, and secondary school levels. So I think these key learning stages should be clearly defined. Another member just now mentioned STEAM education being outsourced, but apart from that, there is also another problem. STEAM education is nothing more than just extracurricular activities. And then university students will not apply to be enrolled in STEAM courses And this will be a far cry from what we're expecting. So more should be done. Under Secretary. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Tang, for his suggestions. Clearly, STEAM education is not an extracurricular activity. There are many elements in different academic subjects related to STEAM. I think we should consider how we step up the learning of STEAM in different subjects. For example, for applied mathematics, perhaps we can include STEAM elements in applied mathematics so that STEAM can straddle across different subjects. When students reach higher levels, as they take chemistry, physics, they are also required to have basic knowledge of STEAM, such as statistics. So these are where STEAM exists in different subjects. But I agree that we need to have clearly defined learning stages. And we are in the course of preparing a STEAM education handbook. We envisage that it will be ready within this year. This handbook will provide clear reference to the education sector and other stakeholders about the key learning stages of STEAM. This is an important goal we strive to achieve within this year. We also need a paradigm shift in culture and mindset, and as an ongoing effort regarding parents' aspirations, career aspirations, there have been changes. In fact, in the past 1 or 2 decades, we've seen a change in the popular disciplines and subjects. Now, there is clear support from the central authorities for Hong Kong to become an international innovation and technology center, and Presidency also personally visited the HASTP and had an exchange with I&T personnel. This is a clear signal for students and parents alike that the future for I&T is bright. And another example is the mainland's achievement in aerospace science. So when we explain the prospects of STEAM to students, we need to place a stronger emphasis on the opportunities of STEAM. Next is Mr. Stanley Ng. I will extend the meeting by another 15 minutes. Please try to observe the 4-minute speaking time limit. That's for both members and Under Secretary. Mr. Stanley Ng. I won't take up too much of your time. I'll be brief. I'll just say that STEAM education should be education for all. In other words, we should foster an ambience in our society so that we make science and technology something for everybody. This will help us better cultivate talents. And I understand from the paper that more resources would be provided to the Gifted Education Fund. It runs a center. Well, for gifted education, we're talking about identifying students with extraordinary caliber. Of course, we don't object to additional resources to exceptionally gifted students, but we're talking about a more general approach to promoting INT development. Shouldn't we have something like an INT talent center to popularize INT education, following the traditional mode of teaching and learning? I mean, on what basis is the government deciding to put extra resources in training gifted students? Under Secretary. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Ng. We have a three-tier model, a three-tier implementation model for gifted education. There is training inside classrooms. We also have training outside classroom. This is taken up by not just the Gifted Education Fund, but also different other organizations such as tertiary institutions. For example, we have private projects undertaken by researchers and one-to-one guidance will be provided by experts and academics for students with potential in STEAM, and in these areas we have collaboration with the institutions. There are also national and international competitions. Gifted students are trained to represent Hong Kong in these games and competitions. There is a screening process. Very often we start with the Hong Kong-based competitions, and we pick gifted students, followed by intensive training for them before grooming them to take part in, say, international competitions. And this is in no way in conflict with STEAM education for all. We place equal emphasis on both prongs. In fact, for general STEAM education, encompassing basic knowledge on AI and coding, this part covers all students, and this is extensively promoted in schools. Next, I have a question. I'm a parent, and I've talked to parents of my age. In terms of STEAM education, parents play a very important role. Because of parents' misconception, many capable students did not become scientists. Some students excel at science, but because of parents' aspirations, these students have become accountants instead, or they've entered the medical school, but they really hate the subject. They could have been very good scientists. Nowadays, it may not be the top choice for top students to take up medicine. We have professional services such as a legal profession, the accountancy, so on and so forth. But some students really excel in different areas such as science, and I'm also a parent of two gifted children. And it was a very difficult pathway for me. I took part in a workshop for gifted students, and I realized that they take a very different approach. If gifted students are stuck in a classroom, they lose interest because they don't follow the traditional education model, and you are wasting their talent. If they're not stimulated enough, they don't enjoy classes in a traditional setting. So it's all about changing the mindset among parents. Even if you're in the financial industry, you need to have scientific knowledge. And if you take a pure science subject in the university, you are not faring as well as a medical student. That's the perception. But nowadays, we need science and technology in e-banking and other fintech products. So parents are the ones who should be educated. Apart from government officials, parents who are influencers should have a new mindset. 10 years down the road, science may become so popular that you won't be able to find enough hands. But we are not keeping with the times. We should start with kindergartens. My child was 11 when my child started joining the workshop, and they were very interested. We need to start young so that 20 years down the road we can groom our own scientists. Because by this time we can have fintech products with the scientific elements that are truly produced locally. And only by doing so will we be able to keep and retain our talents. It's not a 3-year horizon. We must sustain our effort for 20 years. And if in this term of government you start to attach importance to kindergarten pupils, you will be making an achievement.
辯論。
I remember that there was a debate on the motion in 2008. We were talking about 10-year free education, and we talked about the education in kindergarten. In the mainland, they attach importance to kindergarten education, and that's why they were able to develop some high-level, high-tech products. I'll ask Deputy Chair to help me host the meeting. Next, Mr. Chu Kwok-kung. Thank you, Chair. We've been promoting STEAM education in schools. You asked schools to come up with KPIs or implement or stick to the KPIs related to STEAM education. If you focus too much on KPIs, you will have less regard on other parts. In your paper, you mentioned less about the results that you aim to achieve in promoting STEAM education. People in the education sector, they may have this question. Do students have to learn such difficult subjects in primary schools? It seems that we have an established curriculum for promoting STEAM education, but a lot of these curriculum was designed by teachers in schools. Can the administration let us know the outcome you would like to achieve in promoting STEAM education? Otherwise, schools will repeatedly organize various activities without achieving the target that we want. Also, should teachers have the relevant background in mathematics and science before they can teach these subjects in schools? Also, do you need teachers with officer rank to be the STEAM coordinators? If anyone in schools can be responsible for promoting STEAM education, does that mean the Bureau is not attaching enough importance to STEAM education? Undersecretary, thank you, member, for the question. On the question about KPIs, we did set some indicators for schools to follow. We are now compiling the STEAM Education Handbook. It will more clearly define the targets on promoting STEAM education. That are the key areas and targets that students need to achieve in different learning stages. We're not starting STEAM education from zero. In the current curriculum, for subjects related to science, technology, and mathematics, every day students are acquiring relevant knowledge and skills. The key is how we're able to incorporate interdisciplinary learning and hands-on, minds-on activities in classes. The handbook that I talked about will be compiled by the Standing Committee on STEAM Education, and it will provide clearer guidelines to schools in this respect. As to who in schools will be responsible or appointed as coordinator of STEAM education, as mentioned, I think the teacher appointed needs to be committed. That teacher does not have to be in a specific ranking. The most important quality is that the teacher has to have the commitment to promote STEAM education. EDB recommended schools to appoint middle-ranking teachers to coordinate and promote STEAM education. We give schools the liberty to appoint the teacher they decide to be the coordinator. If we find that a certain school appointed someone who is not suitable to be the coordinator, we will offer advice to schools on how they can improve on their work in promoting STEAM education. We'll finish the first round, 2 minutes each for the second round. Ms. Lillian Kwok. We've heard your explanation about the STEAM handbook, but I still think that it is important for you to enhance training for teachers. We need to promote science for all, and each subject there should be elements of STEAM education. We need to think about how all teachers can receive basic training on STEAM education. It can be something similar to a 30-hour program like what we offered to teachers for responsible for special education. Understand that you need to find teachers who are committed to promote STEAM education, but still you need to offer in-depth workshops or training programs to teachers. Also, I hope that the EDB can conduct review on how schools implement their curriculum. I think schools will follow guidelines, instructions, and directions given by the Bureau. And frontline teachers at schools, they will design their curriculum accordingly. So please ensure that you have clear guidelines for schools. Undersecretary. Thank you, Ms. Kwok, for your recommendations. How do we ensure that all teachers in schools can have the basic knowledge about STEAM education? I think we need to ensure that prospective teachers have the basic knowledge on STEAM education too. Last month, I visited the Education University, and I shared some examples to the people there. For example, how AI can change our lives. And how some machines can pass examinations for professional qualifications in legal or in other areas, and you can't really tell what kind of programs are written by robotics or by humans. Do teachers have to have a basic knowledge on STEAM education? Of course, each teacher has to devote certain time to the subjects that they are responsible for, and they have to spend a lot of time in preparing classes. So it may not be very easy for teachers to spare time to attend basic trainings. Can we, through the existing development programs, arrange teachers to learn about the trends such as IoT, AI, and blockchain, etc.? I think teachers need to keep abreast of the development of technology. Currently, in upper primary level, we have certain modules dedicated to STEAM education, including the AI modules and also coding education module. And we are currently reviewing the curriculum. To see how we can enhance STEAM education or incorporate more of these elements into our current curriculum. We will round up this discussion after members in the second round have finished. We need to think about STEAM literacy. And different students make different progress in this respect. So how are you going to ensure that all students can do well in STEAM education? A few years ago, there was a one-off funding to schools to help promote e-learning and e-teaching. With the development of 5G technologies, nevertheless, some schools are still falling behind in terms of their facilities. They don't even have good Wi-Fi receptions. How are you going to improve the facilities in schools?
Undersecretary, thank you, Deputy Chair, and thank you, Mr. Chu, for the two questions. First, we're not short of resources. We have the live-wide learning grant for STEAM activities, and about promoting information technology education in schools. The Education Bureau also provides a subsidy fund for the equipment as well as for the personnel. So schools can make a procurement if need be, in order to flexibly utilize resources available to schools. Under the Gifted Education Fund, there is also funding set aside for promoting e-learning. In other words, other resources will be made available. On information literacy, and how this is related to STEAM education, we envisage internet will be used more extensively as students obtain information from the internet. So we need to teach students about discerning the authenticity of information and cultivate positive values, etc. These are areas that we attach importance to. About the digital gaps among schools, indeed there is a different starting point for each school, and they've also made different progress as well. But we're not saying that some schools are lagging behind as such, because different schools may have different emphases in their development plans. The purpose of enacting KPIs is exactly to help schools. First, they need to appoint a coordinator, and they need to organize STEAM activities for students, and afterwards it would be easy to meet the targets. And we also provide guidance, and if need be, they can apply with the Education Bureau for school-based support services, all with a view to helping them improve STEAM education in schools. So that concludes our discussion on promoting STEAM education in primary and secondary schools. Nothing under AOB. Meeting's adjourned.